If you're having issues in your marriage, you don't want to miss potential clues that your spouse may be prepping for a divorce. These things could just be happening in a normal marriage that doesn't have any problems. These may not be indications of anything, but I feel that if you are in a contentious relationship right now or having problems in your marriage, these could be some clues that your spouse is preparing to file for divorce. So one of the clues could be if you are a stay-at-home parent and always have been, or you only work part-time and your spouse works full-time and you take care of the kids the rest of the time. And now all of a sudden your spouse is suggesting that you get a full-time job and that the kids suddenly be put in daycare when previously they didn't agree with putting a child in daycare or things like that. So this situation actually happened to my current husband. So unbeknownst to him, his wife was considering a divorce. And so what happened was they moved to another state. She got a position at her company in another state. They moved there. Once they moved, suddenly she wanted their son put in daycare when previously she did not agree with putting a child in daycare, which was why my husband was the stay-at-home parent. So she decided when they moved that, oh, he should really be put in daycare. That would be better for him, and you should go and get a full-time job. Now, again, he didn't realize this, but what it was is all preparation for when she filed for divorce. So if he had been working only part-time or unemployed at the time that they filed for divorce and their child wasn't in daycare, then she would be at a greater risk of having to pay substantial child support and substantial spousal support and potentially also not getting 50-50 custody of their son. So in preparation for this, she basically conned him into getting a job and also putting their child in daycare. And then it was just shortly after he started at this position and the child was put in daycare that she filed for the divorce. So keep these things in mind, that something like that could be an indication, because by him having a job and the child being in daycare, it basically put them on equal footing as far as custody goes, because neither one of them was taking care of him all of the time. He was in daycare. And then also she now mitigated how much she was going to have to spend or pay him in child support and spousal support. The other important thing that happened there too was that the job that he got was one that she found for him, and it ended up being about 40 minutes from their home. And also the schedule was 10 to 6:30 every day. So by doing that, she not only got them on equal footing as far as the responsibilities for the child went, because they were both working and the child was in daycare, but now she set it up so that basically he very rarely saw their son, because the child was going to daycare first thing in the morning. He was going into work. It was 40 minutes away, so he was leaving at 8:30. He'd get there at 10 o'clock. He'd start working, and then he would work till 6:30. It would take him about another hour to get home. So at that point, their son's almost in bed. So she basically flipped the script, and he went from being the primary care provider for the first 3.5 years of their son's life, spending every waking minute basically with him, and she spent very little time with him, to now suddenly he was never seeing their son because of the work schedule that he had and the distance he had to drive. And so she was the one taking him to daycare, picking him up from daycare, taking him to his doctor's appointments, because obviously he had just gotten a brand new job, so he didn't have a lot of personal time to be able to take off. And with the distance that it was also difficult for him to be able to get off to go to doctor's appointments and things like that. So she really set him up pretty good for this to become an issue for the custody. But it did end up that they did get 50-50, because in the area where we live, they're very big on making sure that both parents have equal custody of a child, unless there's some type of situation that would prevent it. Or that would make it a negative consequence. So basically, you're going to want to keep an eye out for these types of manipulation tactics by your spouse if you suspect that they may be headed for divorce. So some other things that could be some red flags that your spouse may be preparing for a divorce is if all of a sudden they're locking their phone and their computer and you don't have the password when traditionally you did have the password. This type of thing happened with my husband. His ex-wife suddenly started locking her phone, and the excuse was that, oh, she leaves it on her desk sometimes at work, and she didn't want people going into her phone and snooping. Well, she'd always worked in that industry. She'd always left her phone on her desk. So this sudden reason for her to start locking her phone just seemed to make any sense. And then later on, he would find out there was a reason behind why she locked her phone, because she was communicating with somebody that she probably shouldn't have been while they were married. So I didn't want him reading any of that correspondence. So that's something else you should keep in mind. Also, if they start to withdraw large amounts of money from your accounts, or you notice money's missing from the accounts, also you notice any odd correspondence coming in mail from maybe companies or legal firms or things like that that you've never seen before. Maybe if your spouse starts asking questions about your salary and your 401k and your pension, things that they never seemed to be interested in before, and there doesn't seem to be a really good reason why they'd be interested in them now. That could be because they're trying to gather information for the lawyer the paperwork as far as what settlement looking for to get out of the marriage. Something else could also be if they suddenly suggest that you remortgage the house and maybe you only put the mortgage in one of your names versus the other, or just anything odd financially, or anything odd with like your cars, any of your other property, your home, things like that. Anything that kind of raises a red flag that there really doesn't seem to be a good reason why they're asking these questions. That might be why they may be preparing for a divorce. And finally, if you have kids and you notice that your spouse is starting to exclude you from doctor's appointments, or maybe things going on at school, activities that your kid's in, suddenly forgetting to tell you that your kid had a game or anything like that, or you traditionally always go to parent-teacher conferences together and now you're not. Just anything related with your access to the kids or your involvement in their daily lives. If they start to make drastic changes that don't seem to make much sense, it could be because they're setting up to have a custody fight and they're trying to basically set things up in their favor. But as I said in the beginning of the video, your spouse could be doing any of these for any number of reasons if there's nothing going on in your marriage, so it probably isn't a red flag. But if you're having problems in your marriage and you suspect that things may be declining or that your spouse may be wanting a divorce, then these are definitely things that you're going to want to keep an eye out for and see these as some red flags. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you find this information useful. Please check out my other videos for other tips, or sign up for my free journal, which also gives you a lot of information on documentation that you need during this time. Thank you.